Welcome to the Rock and Roll Show podcast. I'm Alex Gadd, your host, and today we are here to share the thrill of experiencing live music together with strangers and with friends to get to know our guests a little bit better through their concert experiences. Today we'll be talking with someone who is both a personal and a professional friend. He's a huge music fan and a crackerjack musician in his own right, Eric Blakeslee. Eric and I have been coworkers for years and we've bonded over music as much as anything. Eric, thank you so much for joining us today.
I'm happy to be here. Let's kick it off.
All right. We always like to start with a general context for your experience overall with concerts and live music. About how many concerts have you seen? Now, I know this is a bit of a loaded question as you used to work at a rock club, if I remember correctly.
Well, that's correct. It's in the hundreds. It's got to be in the hundreds. And big shows are in the hundreds too. It's all over the map.
And if you had one act that you could say you've seen the most times, who would that be?
It'd be the artist Billy Bragg. Probably seen him 7 or 8 times that I paid a ticket for. Now, when I worked at the club, that's a totally different thing because you have local acts that open and everything else. But where I'm actually shelling out cash, it would be Billy Bragg.
Yeah. Fair. We used to do this as an icebreaker. You've done it with me. When you first meet a new group of people and you're sitting around and it's a bit awkward, I always went for the first concert stories as a way to just get to know people. People of different ages, obviously, are going to have different experiences. But for you, first concert you ever saw, who was it?
Rush at the Rosemont Horizon in Chicago, Illinois.
All right. Now, you were not born in Chicago, correct?
No, I wasn't. My family lived there for about a year. And then we migrated to North Carolina. But in that year, I got to see Rush. Yeah, that's my first show.
That's a pretty good way to start out, I have to say.
It was interesting because I was a fledgling guitar player. And, of course I liked Rush. And my sister, there was no dragging me to the show. She was just like, we're going, and got me a ticket. And thanks to my big sis, we had good seats.
That's amazing. Now, what year was that? Do you remember what tour it was?
It was the Power Windows tour. So that had probably been around 85, 86.
Yeah.
And it was, they played all the hits. And I remember distinctly from that show leaving that I wanted to maybe be a drummer, of course.
Right. That's a natural reaction after seeing Rush.
I was playing air drums at the show. I was very good. And then, and also I realized that I wanted to do that. I wanted to play music a little bit more. It kind of piqued my interest to be amplified. At that moment, I just had an acoustic guitar that I just kind of banged around in my room with, and it really motivated me to get a bass. I started as a bass player in my early music career. So I bought my first bass. It was a Telecaster bass.
Oh, wow.
Squired Telecaster bass. Yeah. And I started playing punk bands, and that's how the rest is history, as they say.
Well, give us your age at the time of that show. So 1985, you are how old?
Oh, 12.
12. And you said you had a guitar. Were you already playing music on that guitar, or were you literally just like plunking around green sleeves and all those basic starting tracks?
I was playing a little bit. I was trying to write songs because
Really?
I wasn't a very good guitar player. So it was more, if you can't learn somebody else's stuff, learn your own, and kind of that's been the moniker that I've stuck with for a while. And I found Johnny Marr around that time too. So there was a lot of acoustic work that he did that really interested me. So it was the melding of Rush and the Smiths was really, yeah.
Whoa.
But it works. Alex Lifeson and Johnny Marr, 2 very, very good rhythm guitar players.
Fantastic players. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Now, can I ask about your musical upbringing before that? Were you raised in a musical household?
No, my mom tried to play guitar. It was her guitar that I had. I think she got through Ohio by Neil Young before she put it down. And it was my grandparents, my stepmom's parents, that were professional musicians. The claim to fame in the family is that it would be my great aunt, whose stage name is Susie Arden, got the very first Rickenbacker 12 string. She was doing a residency at the Mint Hotel in Las Vegas, and Rickenbacker was breaking into the country western scene. So they gave her the prototype of the 12 string as, go ahead and beat it up and see if it will hold up on stage every night. And George Harrison got number 2 and 3. So she had the very
Yeah.
first one in her hands.
The Beatles and the Byrds thank your aunt then, or your
Yes,
step
very much
parent.
so.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah. And she's still with us. And
Oh,
I'm her
amazing.
mandolin. Yeah. I'm her mandolin player for the family bluegrass band. So I'm very happy when we get together and those sessions start. It's one of the few times I play mandolin is with her. So I'm not very good at it, but I try.
I bet you're pretty good. I've heard you play. Now, the opposite end of that, what's the most recent concert you've seen?
Well, the most recent concert that was big was Elvis Costello here in Raleigh, or actually in Durham, which is right next to Raleigh.
Sure.
And I saw a local act called the Backsliders just on my own dime at a club. And those are the two shows. I kind of balanced between the two because, the touring acts, the big touring acts, I don't necessarily put into the smaller acts or the local acts because they're different. They're just different in my mind when you
Yeah,
say concert.
sure. So how were each of those two shows?
Elvis is great. A chatterbox, just telling stories, being funny. And it's interesting that he still has it. The voice is there. I would liken it to maybe Springsteen, that he never really had the voice of somebody like a Paul McCartney. And so he still has it. I mean, he still
Mhm.
sounds like Elvis Costello.
Well,
So,
that's
and
good.
and the thing that surprised me is that he can rip on guitar.
And did he play
You
his
know,
hits or did he play more the more recent stuff,
it
not
was the
the
hits. It was
same?
everything. He was all over the map. He sat down at the piano for a while, and it was just a great show, just
Oh,
all
great.
around.
Tell us a little bit about the Backsliders.
The Backsliders are a fun band. There's a local guy by the name of Ricky Bacchus, and Ricky was in a band called Degeneration, a punk band from the early '80s, early '90s.
Early 90s from New York City,
Or,
yeah.
yeah, early '90s, yeah.
Jesse Mallin's band.
Yes. And unfortunately, he was in a motorcycle accident. And so the Backsliders, Chip Robinson's band, and Chip is a local songwriter. He's probably a C writer in the Nashville echelon, but still a writer in Nashville, you're still somebody.
Yeah, you're in the
And,
game. Sure.
yeah. And he, has a band called the Backsliders, and they got together to do a set, and they're just so much fun. They're just bar rock and roll, just right in your face. It was fantastic.
Sounds great. I do like those bar bands. Bar bands for me have always been a joy because that's the kind of band I play in when I play in bands. It's perfect.
Yeah. And there's I mean, they make you thirsty. That's what being somebody who worked in a club for years, you find that there are bands that are so serious that nobody drinks. And as a bartender, you're like, come on, guys, give us a break. But the rock and rolly guys, it's a Boilermaker. It's a PBR in a shop. I like it.
Right. You want people singing along and dancing so that they need more to drink for sure.
Absolutely.
All right. Do you know what the longest concert you've ever seen is?
Yeah. Well, I've seen Fish. Um, I've
Those shows
seen
do go long. I mean, they have an intermission, but they definitely are longer shows altogether.
Widespread Panic felt like the longest show I've ever seen. I would say Fish, 3 hours.
Mhm.
McCartney was 3 hours, 2 hours, 2.5 hours.
McCartney was like
Yeah.
Joseph.
Yeah. I saw him on Flowers in the Dirt back in the day.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. It was good. Yeah. He played all the hits, and
Right on.
just comes out and he's the showman. But it's the same set every night.
Yeah.
Whereas,
As most
with
bands are. I
Fish,
mean, it's a Fish and, the jam bands are unusual, and Bruce used to do all different sets every night. He has now stopped doing that, which is bizarre to watch, but most bands do the same set every night minus 1 or 2 songs.
mhm,
Now, what's the shortest concert you've ever seen?
mm. Okay. I saw, and again, this goes, he just recently passed, but it was the Flat Duo Jets.
Mhm.
Dexter Romweber, he just recently passed in the last couple of weeks. Was playing a show, and there was a guy that came up to the monitor. And back in the days before the in-ear monitors, but you actually had wedges on the stage. And for those who are out there, those are the speakers that let the musician hear what's going on stage.
Right.
And he came up, he put his beer on it. And so Dex kicked it off because that's just the kind of guy he is.
Mhm.
And the guy got up on stage and started yelling at Dex, and Dex
Oh,
took off his guitar and hit him.
oh
End of show.
gosh.
We were
End of
about 3
show.
songs in, and, there was some bedlam a little bit, but, everybody lived to tell the tale, so there you have it.
That's
But it was about
yeah,
3 songs in.
I've seen a show that's as short as 3 songs as well. Not fun. Of
Yeah.
all and this can be answered any way you want, but do you have a favorite concert? Interpret that any way you will, but do you have a favorite concert?
Um, the first time I saw Billy Bragg was spiritual, because I just love his songwriting, love his humor, that British dry wit, and I just caught him on a night where he was just very introspective a bit. So, I think he was maybe going through some personal trauma in his life. So just you just kind of get the vibe from the artist, and you can just feel it, and it's palpable in the audience. And it was one of those shows. And I just always remember that as just being just amazing.
And, obviously, it got you to go back at time and again.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Not like some bands where you're just kind of the Replacements, maybe. I will say the Replacements because I I had heard the Hijinks, and I saw them and they were good.
Mhm.
And then I never saw them again when they were good. And
But you did see them again.
oh yeah. Oh yeah, even after they were bad, hoping that I would see the good again,
Right.
because you just never knew. It was, but yeah. Yeah, I would say Billy Bragg, definitely.
Now, what's the best live act you've ever seen? Is that the same as your favorite show, or have you ever seen a band that just is dominating on stage, whether or not like you described Billy Bragg as a spiritual thing, which doesn't mean he's the
Uh,
best live performer. It means you had a special connection or he had a special connection with his audience that night. What's the best live act you've ever seen?
ooh, that's a tough one. Um, that could go a lot of different ways. Um, mm, it depends on the day. It
Mhm.
really does. I saw a band from Chicago called In Tall Buildings that just 10 people in the audience. It should have been packed, and they just played their hearts out. Um, best
Okay.
live show.
Yes,
That's a tough one, Alex.
it sure is. Well,
Um,
unless you've seen Prince or Springsteen and you think that they're the
I've
best
seen
live show.
Prince. I
Yeah.
have seen Prince 3 times.
Mhm.
Never seen Springsteen. Prince is probably the best musician I've ever seen,
Yeah, me too.
where your greatest musician I think I'll ever be in a room with, you know.
Yeah, for me, he and Paul McCartney and Stevie Wonder are the greatest all-around musicians in the rock and pop world of all time to me. And so having seen Prince play one song at the David Letterman show and seen Paul McCartney, I got 2 of the 3 in, and I think that's pretty good for me.
You saw Prince on Letterman?
Yeah. It was very
In the
weird.
theater? Wow.
In the theater. Yeah, it was very weird.
Nice.
It was during the period when he was rebelling against Warner Brothers Records, and so he was writing "slave" on his face, and he was performing under the symbol, and he wasn't using his name, and he
Uh-huh.
played the song, and 2/3 of the way through the song, when the lyrics were over, he shoots himself in the head with his fingers and falls to the floor, and his wife at the time was his background dancer, and she ran over and grabbed him and had blood on her hands, and then his one of his bodyguards came and dragged him off the stage, and David Letterman didn't know what to make of it and was so freaked out, and he was asking everyone, "Is he okay?" But of course it was just an act, and I guess he didn't want to talk to Letterman after his song was over, so he devised a
That
way
doesn't
out.
shock
No,
that
not
doesn't
at all.
shock me. When
Not at all.
I saw Prince at the Aladdin Theater
In
in
Vegas.
Vegas,
Yeah.
and it was all the hits.
Well, that's
But
good.
it was like a montage of them. So
Uh,
he was just cutting really quick into each song.
mhm.
And it was he was a big Jehovah's Witness at the time. I think he was up until the time of his death, I think.
I do too. I'm
And
not sure, but that's my understanding as well.
yeah, but he would talk about Jehovah and then play Darling Nikki. And you're kind of like, oh, or Cream, and you're like, what is this? You're
Dichotomy.
yeah, this is interesting. I'm in for the ride here.
Yeah, for sure. He was so good. Now, have
Yeah.
you ever seen a concert that you walked away from just disappointed that expectations were high and the reality was less than fulfilling?
Cracker.
Oh,
Absolutely. 100% Cracker.
ouch.
Huge Camper Van Beethoven fan. Dave Lowry, I thought was just a great songwriter in Camper Van. And when Cracker formed, I think it was even before the album came out, they started touring just to get some traction. And I witnessed that and was left going, God, that was crap.
Oh, I'm
I want to
sorry.
go back, actually. I want to go back. I saw Jeff Buckley for free at a coffee shop here.
That must have been early in his career. As short as
Yes,
his career was, it must have been early still.
it was right after Grace came out, and he
Mhm.
was, I think, doing a promotional tour to get it out to the college. I live in Raleigh, and so Raleigh is NC State, but also University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill is 20 miles away, and Duke is 20 miles away. So there's a lot of free flow music and clubs and attendance at those clubs going back and forth. And he played for free he played a set. I mean, it was an hour 20, everything with the full band in this tiny little room at this coffee shop. And it just blew my mind. It literally blew my mind. I walked away from that going, the Telecaster, I have not made a mistake on buying a Telecaster. I remember thinking that, and that I need to play a lot better.
Yeah.
Because he was just so good. Like very much like Prince, where there's some people that in the moment can transcend the music and they become something that is above the entire room.
Mhm.
And Buckley could do that, with both with his voice and with his playing. So, I mean, I think anybody that's ever heard the song Hallelujah kind of gets an idea of it. But I'll never forget, from that show, actually, he was playing a song called Mojo Pin. And there's a moment in the song where he hits this falsetto note with the drums on the snare, just doing a roll. And at the end of that, the whole room is just quiet. And then all you heard was the steamer from the cappuccino machine broke the, and it sounded, that could have been a gunshot, Alex.
Yeah.
It was
Almost
so
like it was
like,
part of the performance.
it was kind of part of the performance. It was so that everybody was so in to what Buckley was doing that it just kind of pulled you out of it. It was cool. Yeah.
Well, it sounds amazing. Now, let me ask a follow-up there. Did you know his music or who he was before you went to see him?
No, nothing at all. And the coffee shop is called Cup of Joe, and they would get bands. The owner's brother managed a bunch of bands on TVT. So he worked with the Replacements and he worked with Dinosaur Jr., I think.
Mhm.
But you get the idea. He was wired in. So he was able to get acts to come through. So when there was a band, I would check it out because I like music. And when they were setting up, it wasn't the normal, oh, it's haphazard and whatever. These guys were professional and they knew what they were doing. And that's when you kind of stop and scratch your head for a second and say, okay, I'm going to witness something here. This is the first band too that played there that had their own, sound man. They had a little eight channel, board with a sound man behind it. So I was like, oh, these guys are doing this. This is professional. Yeah.
That's great. Wow, what a special experience. You just don't get to see that a lot.
No, you really don't. And I was really hoping my niece is at Carolina right now. And I keep telling her to go to the local coffee shops and find the local musicians. She's a little more introverted than I am. So she's kind of doing it, but I hope that because you just never know who's around the corner.
You never
You
know
know, so
for
much
sure.
good music is around the corner to come yet. It's just some kid that's writing it now. Yeah.
Yeah, I hope that's true. Who is your favorite unannounced guest performer? Have you ever been at a show where someone comes out that you weren't expecting, that isn't on the bill and just blows you away? Do you have any experiences like that?
Mhm. Warren Haynes does a show every year called the Christmas Jam in Asheville, North Carolina. And he does it. It's a benefit show for Habitat for Humanity of Asheville. And, he gets a
That's pretty
litany of
cool for
guests.
Asheville. That's a pretty big pull for
I
Asheville.
mean, Dave Grohl's played it. Last year, Slash played it.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, he just gets all Dinosaur Jr. to, uh, the year that I'm about to talk about, Greg Allman and his band was playing. Not the Allman Brothers, but with the Greg
Right, the
Allman.
Greg Allman Band. Yeah.
So Warren Haynes is out playing just an acoustic guitar in between the set break. And out walks Greg Allman with an acoustic guitar. And they did Needle and the Damaged Done.
Oh,
And to hear Greg Allman sing that was, I
oh,
get chills thinking about that.
I can only
That was
imagine. I'd
amazing.
love to hear that. Love to hear that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Great story. All right, let's switch to the venues that you've seen concert at. What's your favorite concert venue?
Uh, the Cat's Cradle here it's in Chapel Hill, North Carolina.
Okay.
Uh,
I assume a
holds
small club.
about 900.
Oh, wow. Okay, that's a pretty good sized
Yeah.
club.
It's a decent sized club. The owner invested in the sound system and they invested on how to make the room. It's when I say a dead room, what I mean is that there aren't a lot of hard surfaces in the room to reflect sound waves off. So there's carpets, there's whatever. The only thing that's a hard surface is the floor. And for those at home, when people are standing on it, that absorbs the sound. So you don't have a lot of ricochet of sound. So it doesn't sound muddled. It's a very clean sounding room. It's a very good sounding room. That, or I would say just, you know, for fun's sake, there's a bar called Slim's that I've taken you to, Alex.
Yeah, I've been there.
Which is a shotgun of a bar with a stage that's 6 inches tall. But I like that because, you know, people just get up off that stage and rip it. So
Yeah.
that's fun. Yeah.
What's the most powerful show you've ever seen at the Cat's Cradle?
That was where I saw Billy Bragg.
Ah, got it. Perfect.
Mhm.
The opposite end of that is your least favorite concert venue. Everyone's got one. We all do. What's yours?
Well, it's an outdoor venue, called Cocoa in the neighboring town to Raleigh, which is Cary. It's Cocoa Amphitheater. It's in the neighborhood,
Hmm.
and the neighbors drive by with sound meters to make sure that yeah. So you can have a normal conversation 10 feet from the stage. There is no rocking it out there.
Mhm.
And, I've seen Wilco there. You got Nels Cline on the stage ripping it up, and it just sounds
How do
like
they get away with it if the neighbors are policing the show?
they just never turn it up. They never turn it up.
That's the least
It
rock and roll
literally
thing I've ever heard.
it sounds like they're playing in the parking lot, Alex.
Oh,
It really does. You could
say
just
no more.
be, yeah.
I don't want to hear anymore. Don't ever take me there when I come to visit.
Don't worry. I
Okay,
don't go.
good.
Yeah.
Now the venue that you've seen the most shows at is
Motorco, where I used to work
excellent.
in
Tell us
Durham,
more
North
about
Carolina.
Motorco.
Motorco was a Lincoln dealership. And so now it's part restaurant, part music venue. But the showroom where the dealership is the concert venue. So if you can imagine 1950s, like 9 or 10 50s style Lincolns on a floor, that's how big the floor is.
Yeah, that's a
And
great.
then,
In my head, I'm thinking we should all go out and start rock clubs in abandoned car dealerships. That's a
yeah,
brilliant
it
idea.
really
That's a
was.
perfect space for a concert venue.
It really was. I mean, the acoustics are because there's a lot of
You can
glass,
figure
but
that out, right? But you can
yeah,
figure that out.
yeah. But yeah, Motorco.
And what did you do there?
I started as a bartender, then moved to bar manager, and then I just managed, the day-to-day bar stuff.
Mhm. Good memories, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, yeah. Got to meet I've met Jesse Mallon actually there from the other end of Degeneration.
Yeah,
And uh I met a lot of acts through there. It was fun. I look back on that very fondly. It's a
yeah.
great period.
Oh, it sounds great. I agree. I generally like to know, although it kind of sounds like you already have kind of told us, but I'm interested in our guests what type of shows they like the most. Are they festival people? Do they like stadium shows, arena shows, theater shows, club shows, outdoor amphitheater shows? What it sounds like you're a club show guy.
I am. I mean, it's kind of the genre of music that I like the most anyway.
Mhm.
I've never been to a music festival ever. Um, like a Bonnaroo or anything like that. I've never been.
Yeah, I've only been to one
Um,
and it was in 1993, so I haven't been to one in many, many years.
yeah. I did go to the first Lollapalooza,
Oh, well, that's a
but that was just
festival.
to go. No, it's not. I mean, that's just like a day long concert. You
Well, that's a
know,
festival,
I look at a
sure.
festival where you have to you know, buy a tent. you know,
No. Festivals or any show where you're seeing more than one act, an act and an opening act is, a show. Like you're going to see the Rolling Stones and they have an opening act and it's whomever. But a festival is where you have 7, 8, 9, 10 bands on the bill and you go and see all of them from noon to midnight.
then I have been to a festival. I went
Yeah,
and saw
Lollapalooza.
Lollapalooza.
The first one.
Okay, first one, yeah.
Who was at the first Lollapalooza? Remind
Red
me,
Hot
because I
Chili
don't
Peppers were Red Hot Chili
headliners?
Peppers, uh, 9 Inch Nails.
Oh,
Uh,
fantastic.
I have to look it up. I think maybe Susie and the Banshees. That's when I saw Susie and the Banshees.
Wow.
Uh, yeah. Body Count was on that tour.
Nice.
Ice-T. Yeah.
Ice-T playing the
Mhm.
thrash metal. Love it.
Yeah, I know. Talking about
Great.
killing cops, and then now he's on
Yeah, on a
SVU.
for
So
15 years or whatever, right? How the irony drips.
I know.
So for recorded music, what's your favorite live song? Do you have a favorite live song or a couple of songs that were recorded live that you keep going back to where every time you hear them, you really makes you smile?
My son is getting into the Grateful Dead. So we've been listening to Skull
Is
and
that happening?
Roses.
Sorry to interrupt. Is that happening at his preschool, or are you helping him to find the Grateful Dead?
I, we had, he found the song Truckin' on the radio one day and he really liked it. So I encourage it. I just, we're just going. And I'm not a huge Dead fan, but if that's what he wants to hear. So the song that's bringing the most grin to my face right now is a song called China Cat Sunflower
Sure.
by the Dead. And Ronan knows my son Ronan knows all the words and he
Great.
just bops along and goes. And
Fantastic.
for Maeve, we've been listening to Live at the BBC.
Nice.
She's all over the map with the Beatles right now. So
Good. That's a
yeah,
good basis for any kid's musical education. That's just
yeah,
good. It's a good place to start. Start at the
yeah,
beginning. Now, as a manager of a club especially, I imagine that there are some weird or funny or interesting stories of things that you've seen at concerts that are not normal. You have any that you can share with
yes,
us?
yes. I won't say artist.
Oh, well, that's fine.
I won't say artist.
You sure?
Yes,
Okay.
but there was an artist that was kind of big that played Motorco that insisted that we find him some companionship. And I said that I didn't, and was very put off by that. I think he did find companionship. There was definitely some whatever, but when the staff went to go clean the green room, they found a inflatable donkey, like small donkey that was, you know, for purposes. Yeah.
Oh dear.
Oh dear.
Was that the companionship he found?
Maybe.
Anyway,
I
never
don't
mind.
know. I mean, but to each his own, Alex. To each his
Yeah, right on. No judgments. No judgment.
no judgment.
Now, who is
But
the coolest musician you've ever met
uh,
or most interesting musician you've ever met? I'm sure you met a number of them at Motorco,
yeah.
but you
Uh,
also know people just from being around.
because he's top of mind, Dexter Onwooker. Um,
R.I.P.
R.I.P. He was so good and just a really big heart and would play for anybody. I mean, just an artist, a true artist. And now that we no longer have him, it's sad to think that how hard he worked and struggled for his art. That there are so many of us that are like weekend warriors, and I include myself in that. Dex had issues with mental health and he had just issues. And I don't think he could have ever held a job, to be honest with you. His job was his art. And he suffered through that in order to put on a product that was, in my view, excellent.
Mhm,
Every time I saw him, I never said, well, that was a bad Dex show. But
mhm.
he just attacked.
That
Yeah.
he was in Flat Duo Jets, is that right?
He was in the Flat Duo Jets and also the Dexter Ron Leopard duo with his sister Sarah, who
Mhm.
was the drummer for Let's Act from the 1980s. Yeah.
All right, let's go through your bucket list. If you could see anyone perform, living or dead, who you haven't seen yet, who would it be and why?
Robert Johnson start at the beginning. I would love to be sitting somewhere in the Mississippi Delta with what could only be described as corn liquor in a coffee mug, listening to Robert Johnson play the guitar. I think that would be just the coolest thing. I think you could hang it up after that.
Yeah, I think so too. That's pretty amazing. I don't think all that many people did see him play, so that would be
That would be the
amazing.
other part of it. Yeah.
Yeah. And if you could go to any concert venue that you haven't been to yet, which one would be at the top of your list?
Um, there's a couple, if you don't mind.
Oh, no place.
Outdoor, I'd like to go to Red Rocks in Colorado.
Me too.
It just looks beautiful. Indoor, the Fillmore West.
Right on.
I think so much of rock and roll history has happened there that if seeing a cool show there would be cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Bay Area rock and roll, that was the epicenter for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, there were
Yeah.
other places, Cow Palace and lots of other places in and around San Francisco and the Bay, but the Fillmore was where it was happening for sure.
Yeah. And I mean, and you just think the people that walked across that stage. My good friend Chris used to work for a company that did the food and beverage for the Fillmore. So he got
Wow.
to go backstage, and he said that just the whole place is nothing but show pictures, posters.
I would hope so.
But he was like, the ones that they have displayed are like Jefferson Airplane with Janice, but in the back, they've got the MC5 with, whoever. And he's like,
Sure.
this is cool, Yeah.
Right
Yeah.
on. And if you could
Right on.
meet any musician, just meet them, not hear them play, but just to meet them, who do you think the most interesting musician to talk to would be?
I would have liked to have met George Harrison. I think that in terms of fame, I think it would be interesting to hear the Beatles. I mean, I would be interested in the Beatles stories. That kind of stuff that I'm not interested in. I can read about that in books.
Hmm.
But I think that he really embraced stuff like Monty Python. I mean, he's the reason why that happened. And,
Well, he's the reason they got
know,
movies made.
right, with
Yeah.
his own money.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he drove Formula One cars and just did stuff. And that interests me. I think that it's easy to kind of live in a bubble. And I don't think that he did. So I think he really lived, and his spirituality really interests me too. So maybe George Harrison.
That's a great answer. All right. The only thing left to do is look forward. Do you have any tickets to upcoming shows right now? What are you looking forward to seeing this year?
Uh, Let me think. Well, Social Distortion with you,
Oh, I'm counting on it.
October.
I'll be there.
I'm going to see the Circle Jerks coming up. Brian Adams is playing here. Some people are trying to get me to go. Those are the big ones coming up. But there's some
I-
shows I think that I could be coaxed into at the last minute. You
Well, I
just
hope
never
so.
know.
That's always fun. If you're in the mood and you got nothing else going on, it's great to
Yeah.
not think about it and just roll out to a show. Finally,
Yeah.
I want to hear about your current music playing. Tell us what you're doing with your guitar playing,
Well, I'm playing in a punk band,
as it should be.
and
Start there,
as
end
it
there.
should be. And it's fun. It's getting me out of the house about 3 or 4 times a month. Well, I don't know if we'll ever gig, but we're going to record.
Right
So
on. Well,
let's
look, recording leads to gigging if it's good. If the recording's good, you're going to get asked to play.
see. That's the thing, is that I don't know if we're ever going to gig, just simply because we're all farts that just want to do it. We have a little bit of disposable income to be able to go and say, what is it to spend $200 a piece to get a couple songs made? Right.
Hell, I'll
It's
produce
worth
for you and you don't have to pay me anything.
it. Yeah, but we'd have to get up there.
I'll figure it out. I'll come to you. Hey, you're the lead guitar player now too. Starting off from I wasn't very good at guitar, you're now playing lead in this punk band.
Yeah, well,
I don't know if lead in a punk band is actually a sign of great guitarmanship, but I
it
do know
really isn't, Alex.
you're a really good player. I know
Low
you are.
bar,
I understand.
low bar.
Well, I wish you all the best. I hope that I hear some output from those sessions soon. And Eric, I
Yeah,
can't tell you how much I appreciate you taking the time to talk with me today. It really is a pleasure always getting to talk to you, but getting to talk to you about live music is an extra special treat. So thank you for your time today.
I enjoyed every minute of it, Alex. You take care.
All right, you as well. And folks, that's it for today's conversation. Thank you for joining us. We'll be back next Tuesday. And if you like what you heard today, I'd appreciate it if you'd like and subscribe or follow to make sure you get notified about every new episode. Also, we want to know what you think, so please leave us a comment and we'll try to respond to every one of them. The Rock and Roll Show podcast is a World Highway Media production. I'm your host, Alex Gadd, and until next time, take care of yourself and each other.